Hello and welcome back to the agency. Well, we've been through the Christmas game period. We're into January, into the real meat and two veg of what's going to happen in football. And I'm with the people that actually are going to make all the news over the next few weeks. Firstly, Rachel Anderson.
Hi.
Brains and beauty all in one body. Is that
And a cold.
sexist? Am I allowed to be vaguely sexist?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you've been around for
No, I think
in the game
sexism
for a long
is good.
time,
As
so
long
I
as
guess.
I get my own way as well, that's fine.
So, and you're such a star that'll be fine.
Yeah.
And the man who makes more news than ITN, Barry Silkman.
Very sexy, by the way.
Who could argue with that comment?
Not
Now,
me.
here we are in January, all sorts of things happening around the leagues, but not a lot happening in the transfer market just yet. Let me take you back the last few weeks. How do you think the league shapes up after the Christmas programme? Looking at the top and the bottom, are we into a really interesting period now the next few weeks, or is it just going to be more of the same?
Ladies first.
Well, I do think it'll be more of the same. I think it's probably been set now. It's going to be very hard for the bottom to change, that's for sure. I think it's going to be
So we're looking at the table.
Yep.
We've got Manchester City up there, now 5 points clear.
Yeah. Well, Man United has still got a good chance, haven't they?
Never write off Man United.
No.
And
And
Tottenham
Tottenham are playing
seem to
good
be-
football. They're playing good footy at the moment, so they could play themselves up at least another position, at least, I think.
And Tottenham seem to be everyone's second favourite club, unless you're an Arsenal supporter, of course.
Or a West Ham supporter, yes.
Or a West Ham supporter, in your case. So, Harry's got a big game coming up at the weekend. Any thoughts about it? Man City away.
Well, it's going to be hard, I think. That's going to be a hard game. But they're all hard. They are. I mean, this is the best league in the world for a reason, because the opposition is extremely difficult in every game, either because they're all playing perfectly or as near as damn it, or because, usually down the other end, they're doing weird and wonderful things. And sometimes you'll have the top playing the bottom, and
well, we'll come to the other
results.
end in a minute, because I guess it's anywhere between 20 and 13 that could conceivably have the drop. Barry,
True.
Chelsea, Arsenal, are they out of it?
Yeah,
Succinct
got no
answer.
chance.
So it's those
The top four are going to remain the top four, not necessarily in that order. For Spurs' game at the weekend against Manchester City will determine whether Spurs can win the Premier League or not. If they don't win, they're not going to make up 6 points on Manchester City, because then you're relying not on your own form, you're actually relying on Manchester City, in effect losing 3 games and you winning an extra 3 games. Don't think that'll happen. So for Spurs to win the Premier League, they have to beat Manchester City. Should they get beat to Manchester City, not draw, if they draw, they're a 33 to 1 chance. If they get beat, they are 1,000 to 1 chance.
Okay,
I think
so
they're a
this
terrific
weekend-
team,
this
Tottenham.
weekend is a
Don't get me
major-
wrong. I think they're a fantastic
And he's done a
team.
great
They're
job.
amazing. They're great to watch.
This is a seminal weekend.
But
for
this weekend,
Tottenham.
it tells you whether Spurs can actually win
Yeah.
the league or not.
Okay,
But
travel
they've got
down
the
to
African
the
Nations,
bottom.
haven't they, now? So that's going to make a big difference, I think.
Sorry,
With the African Nations Cup.
Yes,
that's
that's
going to make
going
a
to
big
relieve
difference.
players, relieve clubs of some
Yeah,
of their
if
key
they haven't
players,
got
and
the
Manchester
depth.
City suffer, of course. Travel down the bottom. Blackburn. Topic of many conversations the last few weeks. We'll discuss this in a little bit more detail later. How do you think that this could pan out? I mean, QPR are right in it. Wigan and obviously Bolton are also right in it. Blackburn, Wolves, West Brom, and probably 2 or 3 above them are beginning to look as if they could get sucked in. Any
Yes.
particular thoughts of where you think this could fall?
Well, I'd hate to see Wolves go. I really would. I don't want
Played
anyone
very well
necessarily
against
go.
Tottenham the other day.
Yes.
Really,
yes.
they've got that rear guard defence action was well marshalled. It was a very, very strong defensive.
And they may
format they
benefit
played.
from the African nations.
Yeah,
They may do.
that's right.
Because they don't have, some of their star players are not necessarily involved in that. So
That's correct.
that could help.
Barry, do you think Mark Hughes is going to make an instant reaction, or get an instant reaction from the team, and is it going to be positive?
I mean, you can only get a reaction if the players are good enough. That's the bottom line. The one thing that all them teams lack, apart from possibly Blackburn, but then that doesn't make them good things to stay up. They all lack a player.
Samba going to stay?
Is he going to stay? I'd say 6-4 on he goes. I'd like to bet 6-4 on the
6-4 on he goes?
I think so, yeah. I think so. When I look at that table, I look at Wigan. I don't think they've got a player who's a match winner. I look at Bolton. I don't think they've got a player who's a match winner. I look at Queen's Park Rangers. At this moment, they've not got a match winner. I look at Wolves. They've not got a match winner. West Brom, possibly. Odemwingie, when he's Odemwingie also can be a match winner. Blackburn, Yakubu can be a match winner.
Yeah.
So as you look at it now, with the players that are at the club now, not necessarily by February the 1st, for me, the 4 clubs that are really going to struggle are Wolves, QPR, Bolton and Wigan, because they're going to struggle to win a game. They haven't got match winners. But I think if Mark Hughes can get the players he wants, which is a question mark with the players...
What do you think he's going to do, Barry?
He needs a striker, for certainty. You know, they're all talking about him buying Alex and et cetera, et cetera. He needs a natural goal scorer. He also needs a player in midfield who can unlock a defence. It's all very well having great defenders, but if you don't score a goal, you don't win. He needs, without doubt, a midfield player who can unlock a defence. He needs a terrific passer of the ball, and he needs someone who is a natural goal scorer, who's quick, clever, and can score a goal from nothing. Someone who's got good movement.
Two.
I mean, ideally, it's like a young Thierry Henry. I mean, if he could find a Demba Ba from somewhere, that would be the perfect solution. Can he find one? I don't know. One thing's a certainty.
Okay, hold on a second, because I want to talk to you about Demba Ba in a second. Looking at what may or may not happen, not a lot has happened.
No.
We're, I think, £20 million worth of transactions, 17 of which are in 2 deals. The Cisse deal last night at Newcastle, which we'll talk about in a second. Cahill, and if you look at the spend in January over the last 9 years, this is the Premier League spend over the last 9 years. I mean, it vacillates. Obviously, 2011 was a lot of Manchester City. We're looking. Everyone complained in 2010 that this was the worst year ever. It was deeply off the back of the 09, early 10 recession. We're looking as if we may struggle to top that figure. Any particular thoughts?
And in real terms, it's less, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, because inflation has,
absolutely,
whether
right.
it's invisible or not, it's
and inflation has been running
over.
at over 5%. So yes, absolutely.
Yes, it has. And I really don't think very much is going to be done.
Even the last few days, we're not going to get a flurry like we have got traditionally.
There might be a flurry of a few, yes, possibly loans, but I don't think there'll be that much.
And is this really because the banks are saying to the football clubs, sorry guys, that's your overdraft and that's your facility and that's it, there's nothing more? And
it is.
Are football clubs behaving financially in a way they haven't behaved before?
I think they're forced to, in a little way. You know, they're being forced to, unless they've got somebody that's printing the money for them. You know, and there's only 1 or 2 teams in the league that have that.
Will there be any more?
Oh, it's always possible, but I can't see an obvious one. Oh, I can maybe see one.
Okay, let's cherry pick
Maybe
a couple.
one.
I mean, Arsene Wenger going to do anything, Barry?
It will. I mean, I think the transfer market will end up on about 65, 70 million.
You reckon it'll go there?
January?
Yeah, for sure. I think one player that will definitely go for over 20 million will be Tevez. So that'll add 20 million to it. I think you're going to get another, or maybe 2 transfers around the £10 million mark, for sure. It's going to be someone.
Spurs, Arsenal going to do anything?
I think, I mean, the only way Harry can improve his team now, or would need to improve his team or his squad, is if somebody goes. I mean, he's got a very good squad. He struggles a little bit central defender-wise.
Soft at centre half, isn't he?
Yeah, he struggles at central defenders mainly because of injuries.
Yeah.
When they're all fit, I mean, I think Cabell is a terrific player. I love him. I think Dawson's a good player.
Yeah.
Everybody else, Ledley King, when he's fit, exceptional. How often is he really match fit in a season? Probably 15, 18 games a season. So probably a real top central defender he could do with. In midfield, can't see how he can improve the team. Up front, unless somebody goes, I think the improvement will come in the summer and not now. So when I look at Spurs, I'd say not really.
Okay, let me take you back to a comment. Rachel, I'm going to come back to you in a minute and have a quick chat about Arsene Wenger. You said before Christmas when we sat here, a club that might do something that's never done it before in January, Manchester United. Do you still think they might?
I think if they could get the right...
Or was Paul Scholes that person, by the way?
Yeah, probably was. I think if they could get the right player, the problem you got when you're Man United is you need someone out the top drawer. And 99 times out of 100, someone out the top drawer is playing in a major club and playing Champions League football. Or they're in the squad and they're playing one every 2 games. And you just can't get them. And I think they have got their eye on one player. In fact, I'm absolutely positive they have. Getting them, I'd say they've got no better than a 20% chance. Arsenal, who you mentioned before, I wouldn't say that he has to buy, but if Arsene Wenger wants to improve the team, he has to buy. Whether it's now, whether it's in the summer, he hasn't got a top-class team anymore. He's got some very good players. I think he's probably got 2 world-class players. Van Persie and the central defender who's lame.
I think they'll keep hold of Van Persie, Rachel. It's coming to the end of his contract next year.
I think they will. I don't think he'll go until the end of the season.
He's got a bad injury track record, hasn't he?
He did have, not now.
What's happened to him? What's changed that?
Well,
this is the first year that he's played through Christmas.
I'll tell you what happens, John, as well, a lot when you've got an injury. When you've got an injury in football, sometimes you can try and come back too quick. Sometimes it's the physios trying to get you back too quick. Sometimes you want to get back too quick. And I think what's happened with Van Persie, from the end of last season to when he started pre-season, I think he had a rest. And a rest sometimes is as good as anything. You know, I remember Terry Venables when I was a player. I got an injury. I'd never been injured before. And I got this little injury. And Terry said to me, there's one thing you can't beat in life. When you get injured, you can have all the treatment, you can have the ultrasound, you can have injections. You can't beat time. And I think Van Persie
you don't get very much
time.
Yeah.
And he's come back. He looks a fantastic
player. A lot
player.
rests on him, though. I mean, he goes out there as captain, so he's got that on his shoulders. In his legs, a lot rests on him.
Well, he's the only world-class striker they got.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably one of only 2 world-class players they've got. I think what Arsenal lack now is what they've had over the years. They've had 4 or 5 world-class players, and then they've had 8 or 10 very good players. They've now got 2 world-class players, and then that's it.
30 seconds for a break. One last comment. Thierry Henry. Good move, bad move, fairy tale come to an end?
Yeah, listen, great publicity. He lacks the edge that he did. He's been playing in non-competitive football. To get that edge back could take him 6 weeks and then he's gone. But great publicity, great for the club, great for him. And even if he don't score another goal, the goal against Leeds was worth whatever they're paying him. It was amazing. I don't support Arsenal, I don't support anyone, but it was great.
Did you enjoy that, Rachel?
I did, actually,
Okay.
I did.
We're going to come back and talk Newcastle, amongst other things, and try and let you know the inside track which these guys create on a continual basis of what's going to happen the next couple of weeks. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back to The Agency, the programme that's going to tell you what's really happening by introducing you to people that are making the news happen. Barry Silkman, Rachel Anderson. We were talking about what is happening in the football transfer market. There's not been a lot.
No.
There will be. Barry thinks a little bit more.
I have to get a paper round, I think, now.
Yeah.
Something.
There's a lot of
already got
agents. Yeah, that's an interesting point, Rachel. There are 400 and something agents.
Yes.
And the fans might want to know what they all do and how they will. There's been a lot of publicity about how much money agents make. The fact that there's not a lot of business, do you think a lot of agents will go out of business in the next year or 2?
That happens every year, doesn't it? I mean, every year there's a natural shedding because it's an evergreen business. New ones come in, and
do you think the world of agents is changing? And if so, how?
I think that perhaps the perception of what an agent does has now been realised, that it's not just, turning up for the odd meeting now and again and then making loads of money and disappearing. You have a whole infrastructure to feed. You've got staff, you've got transport, you've got...
Tell the supporters who are out there watching a précis version of your life? What are you? And we know you manage players. We know you transfer players. We know you look after them. Just a little bit of colour on that sketch diagram. What issues do you have to deal with? What does a football agent do Monday to Friday in March?
Oh, in March, let me think, in March. Well, it depends. I mean, you can have young players, and in actual fact, they take up a lot of time because they need a lot of nurturing.
Do you work with the parents?
Yes, you have to work with the parents, and sometimes they need re-educating, shall we say, of
There's a lot of discussion in
aspirations.
the newspapers that parents get more involved than they should be. Do you have a view on that?
Well, they do, and I can understand why. It is their baby, but it is important that they step back because nobody wants to hear anything bad about their baby. Nobody. I mean, it's bad enough as an agent, but as a parent, I mean, I wouldn't have tolerated that at all. So it is difficult.
Do you think it's going to become more like it is in America now, where there's a dozen key agents, and that is really it? The rest
Well, as
are
long as I'm one of them, I'll be happy.
I'm sure you will be.
As long as we all are,
I
we're
think
okay.
you were one of the first as well, Rachel, weren't you?
Well, I was the first woman, so that's something. There are other agents that are bigger and better than me, perhaps, but not many.
I need 2 seconds before we move on to a gentleman called Sean I want to bring in to talk about Suarez. Newcastle, Cisse, big deal last night. With all the Twitter and the
I
and the
know.
Facebook and the this and the that and the
How
hype
did that
and the
sneak
electronic,
through?
how did that sneak under the radar?
Well, that's a secret squirrel thing, isn't it, really? I mean, MI5 should get onto those people and find out how they kept that out. I don't know how that happened. Did you do it?
No, I wish I did.
Yeah.
You were involved originally in bringing VAR into the UK.
I was involved in bringing Denver into England, yeah. One of two people involved. They're quite good, Newcastle, at doing things. They try to get it done quick and they try to get it done without people knowing, which is not
Perhaps that's the
always
secret, the
easy,
speed,
yeah.
the
I
Is
speed.
it easier in somewhere like Germany, where it's a very sophisticated
It depends on the
country,
player.
rather than
It depends
coming
on
out
the
of
player.
Turkey or Greece or something?
I tell you what makes it easier, John, is if the player's not edging for somewhere else and they've got the club and they don't want to go
Yeah.
anywhere else. A lot of the time they leak the news because they actually want to see if somebody else is
True.
interested.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the times when it comes out. In the case of, no, I want to go to this club, if the club say, listen, we don't want this to come out, let's get it done, come on, have a medical, sign a contract, and then we'll announce it. It can go under the radar. A lot of the time it's when the player's saying to his agent, see if
It
there's
actually
another club
took
out
everybody. It took everybody by storm. I need 10 seconds because we can't leave the transfer window without talking about the other big transfer, Gary Cahill. Any thoughts? Going to make a difference, guys, to the team? And then we're going to move to Mr. Suarez.
For me, I think he's a good player. I think he's a long, long way from being a world-class player. If you're asking me, can he help Chelsea win the Premier League? Would he make a difference? I have to put my hand on my heart and say no. If you compare him with someone like Vidic at Man United, it's a long, long way
Okay,
behind.
loaded
someone like
question. Do we think that potentially anything that could happen around the back four personnel at Chelsea, this was something they had to do this window?
that. But the manager keeps saying that he loves Luis. So you've got to look and say, well, if he's taking Cahill and
What
he
happens
loves
to
Luis, who will he actually play him in front
Yeah.
of? He's not going to play him in front of John Terry. John Terry is, as long as you don't play a high line and you play quite deep, there's not a better central defender, probably Vidic, yeah. But if you play a deep back four, there's not a better central defender outside of Vidic than John Terry. So if you're saying, I love David Luiz, I think he's one of the best in the world, which is what the manager says. Where does Cahill play? So we're about to find out whether the manager has been given a bit of kidology with David Luiz and he doesn't think as good as what he's saying, or
Right.
whether
Be interesting to
Cahill's
watch.
gone there as a sub.
One for everybody to watch.
Absolutely.
We're going to have a quick chat with a nice young man from Liverpool. You are from Liverpool, aren't you, Sean?
I'm not, unfortunately. I'm from south of England. But
Okay, well, this is Sean, who is...
Hi, Sean.
I may get this wrong again. Are you a Liverpool supporter, Sean?
I am indeed a Liverpool
Okay,
supporter.
we got that 50% right then, didn't we? Anyway, guys and girls, this is Sean.
Hi, Sean.
Talk to us, Sean.
I want to talk about Luis Suarez. More specifically, obviously Liverpool have come under a lot of criticism with Suarez and the way it was handled with defending him. I just wanted to know what your guys' opinion was on the T-shirt affair and how you would have advised your players if they'd have rung you for advice, if they'd have talked to you about should I do this, should I not do this, because it seemed to be a very quick, haphazard event from him being proved guilty to the T-shirt wearing incident happening.
I think it's a very good point. Sean, now, I'm going to pass this to Rachel first, because Rachel has a reputation for managing her players in a very hands-on manner. So give us a hands-on view,
I'd take the T-shirt
Rachel.
away for a start. That's how hands-on I'd be. It's up to the player. I mean, if the player wants to wear it, then fine. But also, equally, if the player doesn't want to wear it, even though he's been instructed to by the manager, I would absolutely 100% support him in that, because it's not playing football. Do it on the training ground. That's nice. Do it on the training ground. You'd be amazed what happens on the training ground.
Barry, led by Kenny Dalglish and the management team, do you think? Or are they afraid of the management team? Is there an influence?
I mean, it had to come from the football club. I mean, I love Damien Comoli. He's the football director there. I mean, I get on great with Damien. I must say, I think they made a massive slip up with the T-shirts. Anything to do with racism nowadays is a very political and touchy subject, and I think it should be something that's kept in-house as much as you can when it become as big a problem as it did and it become out in the public as it did. I think as a club you've got to try and keep it in-house, you've got to keep it under the radar and just hold your hands up and said he made a mistake. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong. To wear a T-shirt as they did, I think everybody in the Western world thought they'd scored an own goal. I'm one of those who also thought they scored an own goal. Yep. If I had a player there who asked me what he should do, I would say you're old enough and big enough to make your own decision. If you're asking me what I would have done as a player, I wouldn't have worn it.
The whole thing seemed a bit surly, didn't it, Sean? Do you think, in your opinion, do you think the team should, or the player in question should have come out and just said, you know what, hands up, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean it, and everyone moves on? Or do you think...
I'm an idiot.
Well, what do you think, Sean? You're a supporter.
Well, obviously hindsight is a wonderful thing, and if they should have worn any T-shirts, they probably should have worn the kick-out racism one, as several podcasts have duly mentioned afterwards. But it does seem like one of those things that the club and everybody else was backing the player until the death, as it were. And even though this was a club decision to wear the T-shirts, it does seem like that there is a tit for tat between two of the most successful clubs in English football, and it is kind of a way to get that rivalry to a head, as it always has read its way to do. I think the actual T-shirt scenario should have gone a little bit further in the minds, and I'm surprised it didn't go further in the minds at the time. There should have been somebody that said, well, if he's guilty and we're going to support him, let's just all have a team photo and put him in the centre, or make him captain for the night, or something like that. I mean, there's lots of little things that could have happened.
That's a good idea, actually. That is a good idea.
It is.
Making him captain for the day, or benching him.
Sean, is this going to play out round 2 in the 4th round?
I think that there's going to be some play out of it. I don't think the play out is going to be on the field, though. I think the football will speak on the field as it always has done with Liverpool Football Club, for their detriment or their success. I think the worry of it is that this situation will carry on and carry on and carry on in the press, talking about the culture differences and talking about how prevalent racism actually is or isn't, and then ultimately it will end up talking about who decides what at Liverpool Football Club. As we said, obviously this does reek of a decision that was made very, very quickly. You do have to worry, if the club made that decision very quickly, is that a very big own goal for them, or is there somewhere lower down that is made?
Just want to ask Barry one thing for a second. I've been in football for 30 odd years. I don't think there's a lot of racism in football. I think it's isolated. What's your take on it?
I think it's racism in life, isn't there? There's certain racism throughout life, and why should football be any different to life? You know, there are people that are racist. There's people that hate blacks. There's people that hate Jews. There's people that hate Muslims. There's people that hate
Jewish woman. Try that.
That's true. There's people that hate Roman Catholics. And I mean, there is racism in life. It's the way that people are brought up. It's the environment they're brought up in. And just because somebody happens to be racist in football, I'm not saying in this situation, but I'm talking about generally, it doesn't make it any different to the rest of life. I don't think it's a case of kick racism out of football. I think it's kick racism out of life, all racism. That's just my belief.
It's a very good comment. Sean, final word to you. Bit of a loaded question in a way. What goes on a football field, should it remain in the football field, or if it tangentially touches life, should it involve not just race? I mean, racism is wrong, full stop, but should it involve outside governing authorities? And I'm taking it a little bit further. If there's a violent tackle, should the police be involved? Or are you a fan that believes what goes on a football field stays on a football field?
I think we would like things that are on the football field to stay on the football field. It is an arena of high competitive nature and a lot of ego. And of course, as soon as people are off of that football field, as you see with many interviews, a lot of these footballers are very calm, kind, genteel people. And as soon as they get on that football field, they're a completely different person with 30 to 70,000 people behind them, making them get that passion for their club. I think if things are far too much, then things can be brought off the field. This particular saga has been brought off the field. There's other racial instances we can't comment on which have been brought off the field. There are even violent things that are brought off the field. And I think people know when they need to be brought off the field, when things have gone a bit too far and a bit over the line of this is a game and this is highly competitive. And I think we trust in the officials and we trust in the FA and the managers of these players and the players themselves to know when they've crossed that line.
Yeah, I think
got the last comment there.
That's right, Sean. I think he's right. I think you're right. There is a line, and once you go over that line, it's like saying a footballer can go on a pitch with an axe and chop someone's head off. Well, they can't. There is a line that you can't go beyond. If you go beyond that line, you've got to suffer the consequences. It's a sport, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's a sport. Final comment, guys. We've got to cut to a break. Sean, thank you so much. Really appreciated your comments. Rachel, thanks, Sean.
Barry,
bye.
We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Take care.
Got lots more to discuss. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back to The Agency. Now, a lot of things happen in football on a continual basis, and a lot of things happen in the domain of the agents' world. And here we are talking to two of the most senior agents, not age-wise, just sort of seniority, Barry Silkman, Rachel Anderson. And actually I want to get into something about agents in the next few minutes. Jerome Anderson was involved.
Yes, no relation, by the way.
I thought it was your dad.
Yeah, well, no relation.
That's a bit strong.
Jerome Anderson was involved in a lot of the Blackburn dealings on behalf of the Venkies. He came out, I actually thought he did a very good interview on Sky Sports News when he took some criticisms. We have a number of people who voiced opinions. I want to just ask you, how involved do you think an agent should be on behalf of the management of the club? Should they be giving their expertise and then withdrawing, or should they be, and bear in mind we have people in clubs like Doncaster who are also very involved in the management of the club. How involved should an agent be, and is it conflictive for that agent to be involved in the club and on the playing staff, or with the playing staff? Rachel? Well,
it by nature it has to be a little bit conflicting, but I mean, personally, I can divorce the two. I can represent a club. I can represent a club
and players.
And, yes, I know. Not if you can do a fairish deal, but this particular, I think perhaps it might have been better had somebody else said the things that Jerome has said. I'm not saying what he said was incorrect or anything.
Just before we get on to that, just so that the supporters know, I just want to ask you one other thing that has been tossed around a lot in the media and no one's quite got a clear picture on it. When you act for a club, you're allowed to charge a percentage. Yep. When you act for a player, you're allowed to charge a percentage.
Yep.
Can you be on both sides of a transaction?
Well, you can. Of course you can. Lawyers do it all the time. As long as you declare, I don't see why not.
So transparency is
yes, you need that. And also, sometimes it makes the deal easier because then you're not dealing with some agent who's not reasonable. Hopefully you're arguing with yourself and perhaps winning now and again. So it can make it smoother. I'm not saying it's ideal in every case, but it can work. It does work.
Barry, how do you feel about agents getting very... I know you've been involved in a number of transactions on behalf of clubs.
Quite a lot, yeah. I mean, as in the case of Jerome, I would think that Jerome was probably asked to help the club by the owners, otherwise he wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
He says that he introduced the owners.
Yeah, so I would have thought he was acting on what the owners have probably asked him to help. He's obviously the agent of the manager, and the deals that he would do, it would be in his best interest, no question, to do the best deals he can for the club to help his own client, who is the manager.
There seems to have been some consternation on the terraces at Blackburn, in the seats these days, of fans saying, how can you be the agent for players, the club, the manager?
I've got to tell you, I must tell you something. I'm a believer you can be an agent of 4 people in one transaction. The bottom line is that when you walk away from a deal, everybody involved in that deal, the buying club, the selling club, the agent of the player, everybody is happy with that deal.
Exactly.
And everyone can live with that deal.
Result.
So you can work for everybody. It's irrelevant.
For you, it's transparency, Rachel. For you, Barry, it's the result. And if you put the two together, then the regulation should articulate that.
If everybody's happy with the end result, and everybody can walk away from the table and say, do you know what, we've got a really fair deal here.
Yes.
What's the difference if there's one agent involved, 10 agents, or no agents? So it's irrelevant.
Very well articulated, guys. Thank you. I want to introduce you to Mike. Hello, Mike. Now,
hi, Mike.
We were talking about you. We were talking about you, Mike, in the break. Barry said, "Do you have a very long throw?"
Oh man! Do you know what?
Sorry about that.
I wish.
It's not original,
I
I know.
For every time I heard that, and I'd not be sat here and working until 9 o'clock at night. Trust me.
Anyway,
by the way, I must say, is your nickname Rory? Do they call you Rory as well?
Only the more cynical people I know. Yes.
Well, with or without ball in both hands, tell us your thoughts, Mike.
Oh God, it's such a difficult time, and I can only really speak from like a fan's perspective. But you know, as a Blackburn Rovers fan at the moment, I'm struggling to remember in my lifetime a worse period for any club. You know, I'm 27, and we've been relegated before, and it doesn't feel as bad as it does right now.
Okay, can I ask you why?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just the uncertainty and the turmoil and the complete chaos that seems to surround our club at the moment. And you know, it's one of those things we don't feel like we're being spoken to by anybody. There's no obligation for anyone to talk to us, but you know, it's just one of those things where you almost feel like you're screaming and shouting a lot and no one's listening, and that can be very, very frustrating.
So break that out into the component parts. The Venkies, do you think they should be talking to you more? Do you think they should be saying more, doing more? Do you think they should appear more?
I can answer to all of those questions. Absolutely, yes, they should. Maybe we're sort of, as a group of fans, maybe expecting too much under the old regime of the Walker Trust and the John Williamses and Tom Finns and those sort of figureheads. We were actually treated really well, perhaps more so than, better than most fans were. So maybe we're just comparing it to that. But Venky's answer to everything seems to be, like an ostrich, just bang your head in the sand and and hope the problem goes away.
Jerome was on, or in the media on Sky Sports News the other week, talking about his role and defending some of the positions that he thought he wanted to defend, which was, of course, is his right. And as I said at the top of this, I think he articulated it very well. How do you feel towards Jerome? Because one of the things he said is that some of the supporters have taken this a bit too far. Do you feel any animosity towards the agent's role in this whole transaction or number of transactions? First off, I must say it's difficult for me to get too angry about it because I'm not in a position where I know the full ins and outs of the deals, but watching the interview and listening to the interview and the points he was making, I did feel a bit upset and a bit angry of what he was saying. There was some comment he made about, if you've got a problem with Steve Keane or you're protesting too much, then you're not a proper supporter. And he even inferred at one point that
there might be some dark forces, within this protest organisation and within the Blackburn fans, which is absolute nonsense.
I think he's clarified that over the last 48 hours or so. What about your manager? What's your thoughts? I mean, they've had some interesting results over the last 2 or 3 weeks, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to him, the last couple, 3 or 4 games that he's been in charge of, he's bought himself a little bit of time. He's done quite well in recent games, but then you have to take it over the period that he's been here. He's been here for 40 odd games, and can you say he's done a good job? I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who'd say he would, because he's, we're bottom of the league. We're not bottom of the league, sorry, we're 17th, and we've been on a bit of a slide ever since he took over, and that's not a coincidence. Okay,
thanks, Mike. 1 second. Barry Silkman's been around the game for many years, both as player, representative in a number of different areas of the game. Your thoughts, Barry?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a player, I've been an assistant manager, a coach, now I'm an agent. And I've got to say that there are 3 teams that have to go down every year. I'm not defending Steve Keane, and I'm not defending Steve Keane, but the bottom line is there are 3 teams that have to go down. And it's not always the manager's fault. What is the biggest problem is people only see what happens. What they don't see is what don't happen. And there are occasions when a manager approaches the owners, and say, I'm not saying this is the case in Steve Keane's case, but it might be. He approaches the owners, he gives them the list and said, look, if we can get these 5 players who are all gettable, I'm not trying to buy Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo and Cesc Fabregas, I'm trying to buy reasonable players for this club. If we can bring these 4 or 5 players in, we'll have a decent season.
Do you think they'll spend?
And it could be, well, I think they maybe try to do it in the summer. And for one reason or another, maybe the finances, they didn't bring them in. But you've got to remember, a man who I've got he's a great friend of mine, he also got relegated, was Harry Redknapp. He got relegated with Southampton. It didn't make him a bad manager. He went there, he tried to bring in, I know for a fact, at least 9 players at one time and got none of them. So unless you actually know what goes on inside that club, I don't think it's the manager who should be taking the stick. I say, I've never met Steve Keane. I think it's got to go at the owners. And then if you see, if you see the owners then, Mike, spending money, paying decent salaries, spending decent money, not 40 or 50 million, but you can buy players now spread over three years, well, 2 years, three lots of money. So you can spend 30 million and only spend 10 now, 10 next year, 10 the year after. If you see a club do that and really, really try their best, you've got to say, do you know what? They're really doing their best, but maybe the managers picked the wrong players. When they hardly buy anyone and you're stuck with a bunch of ordinary players, do you know what, mate? It's half hard with 3 or 4 moderate players in the team. It's really difficult.
I think what I would say is that for starters, we as a group of fans don't have a problem with not winning games. Well, we don't have a problem with not winning games, but if we had a big problem to the point where it was the be all and end all, we still wouldn't be Blackburn Rovers fans. Jesus, we've lost enough of them over the years to, for that to be a problem. Yeah. I think the main, you're absolutely right. I agree with you that the main problem isn't Keane. The main problem is, even from the start, has been Venky's as owners of the club, because they're the ones where the book stops and ends. They're the ones that are in charge of whether Keane's still employed or not.
For sure.
And I think the other thing I would say, the only reason Keane gets quite a lot of stick is because he's their mouthpiece. He's the one that's in England. He's the one that's spouting out all the nonsense that he's being told to spout. But he just doesn't seem to have a very good grasp of reality as well. Like when we play games and we lose quite heavily, like we lost 3-1 to Villa at the start of the season. He was coming out and talking as if we just whooped someone 5-0 when we've been taught quite a bad lesson.
I'll tell you what, Mike. I played with Terry Venables for 5 years. And he used to say something that was very, very, very true. He used to say to me, Silky, if you ever become a manager, always remember, every player in your team, even when you're getting beat, is a good player. You can't tell them they're bad players. When they leave the club, you can say, you know what, he was useless. But while they're there, they're good players. And it's very difficult if he's working in a situation knowing he's not going to get money. The one thing he can't do is openly criticise his players, maybe behind closed doors, yes. But once you openly criticise them, you lose them. And if you haven't got 30 or 40 million to fall back on, you've got a problem. And I think that might be his problem.
Okay, guys, hold on 1 second. Just before you respond, Mike, I'm going to, because we're running out of time, and we could keep this going for ages, but I just want to narrow down to one last aspect of it. Samba. Lots of discussion over the last 48 hours, lots of news. 2 questions. We'll just get your thoughts briefly, Rachel. And Mike, can you stay up without him?
Well, he shouldn't have missed training if he missed training. I mean, there's no excuse for that. So
You have to be professional.
yes,
Always,
you've got to be
you?
professional.
You always have to be professional.
Yeah, especially if you want to leave.
Absolutely
I mean,
right.
it's ridiculous.
Absolutely
I
right.
I
don't
mean, can
know.
I
Mike,
just quickly
you're-
say,
Yeah, of course you can.
as I understand it, my understanding is that he was told at the beginning of the season that if things weren't going well and he wanted to leave in January, he would be allowed to do so,
Still
providing
train, though.
they got the right money. And
Still
yet you
train.
still do train, but some players do go on strike. I went on strike. Before I went to Manchester City, I went on strike for 2 weeks. So I know how he feels. I'm not saying he's right, but unless we actually know the ins and outs, I don't think we can criticise either the player or Blackburn because we don't really know the ins and outs.
I disagree with
I
you. I
have to-
think he should be seen to be doing the right thing, no matter what's going on behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying
I mean,
he's
he should
right.
have turned
I'm
up.
not, you know.
He should have turned up
Two
for training.
very good points. I have to give the last word to the man that matters. He's the supporter.
An example
30 seconds on Samba.
Young players at Blackburn, and you know, if he wants to leave, fine. He said he wants to leave, but turn in, do what you want to do, and if he is made to stay, which I'm pretty sure he will be made to stay as well, then play out, keep professional. I'm sure if we stay up, and he's going to be a big part of that if he does stay as well, then you know we can push for it again in the summer and ask for it then. It's a much more reasonable time as from a club's point of view, particularly if he's got the club at mind first.
Yeah, if you
Mike,
love football,
Mike,
Mike, if you love football, very quickly, I always say to my players, whether you like being at the club or don't like it, whether you're going to move or don't move, walk onto the pitch every game and try and be the best player on the pitch,
Mike,
and you'll enjoy the game.
5 seconds, and we've got to be out to commercial break. What reception will he get next game at Ewood?
Samba,
Yeah.
he'll get a good one. He'll
Good.
get a good one.
Good.
He's still a good player. We need to get behind them all.
Excellent.
Well-
Mike,
well
thank you
said,
very
mate.
much, and lots of luck. Hope you stay up. Thanks for being part of this. Guys, we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be back. Lots more to discuss. Don't go away too long. Hello and welcome back to the agency. Now, I've been chatting while you guys have been making tea, and Barry's comment was if this was years ago, Michael Parkinson wouldn't be too worried. So
Wouldn't he?
but we're
Even
trying.
Emu wouldn't be worried.
You don't know what's going around the back of this chair.
Exactly.
So we've been having a little Josh, and our producer's name is Josh. So all in all, we're trying to make this a bit of fun, but in reality, it's serious too, because we're in the middle of a very serious part of the season, the trading window, and what happens next, guys. So we're going to have a chat about Arsenal in a second. Any particular thoughts about, and we touched on it earlier on, but any particular thoughts about the teams that are just below the 5, so somewhere between 5 and 13, and I think we all agree that maybe 13 is where the drop could begin. What about the rest of the teams, the Aston Villas of this world? Are they going to do anything in this window? Is there going to be any excitement? Is there going to be anything particularly for us to shout and scream about?
I don't believe so.
Or are we just
I don't
looking at the
believe
top and
so.
bottom?
There might be the odd loan, but I don't believe there will be very much. I mean, if they've got enough points to stay up now, normally after Christmas you sort of know-ish whether you're going to manage it or not.
Some people say it's better to be in the relegation dogfight than be 11th and
Really?
not challenging
That's
for
people
Europe.
that aren't in the relegation.
If you were a supporter, would you agree with that?
I take 11th every day.
You would.
Absolutely.
Barry?
As a player, I take 11th because the bonuses would be better.
Good point to leave that. Let's talk Arsenal for a second. Now, Mr. Wenger, who I have to say is one of my favourite people on the planet,
Sure.
and done a remarkable job at Arsenal. Looking at the back page of the Sun from today, in fact, Wenger refuses to spend, in brackets, again.
Well, I think he'd
Obstinate?
spend if he had the money.
Is he doing the right thing? What do you think, guys?
Do we believe the Sun? I'm not sure about that. My dad used to say it's a comic.
He used to read it.
Looking
didn't
at
he?
Arsenal,
Everybody
wouldn't
reads
he?
it.
I've got to say something about Arsenal. I've only met him once or twice, and he's certainly got older in this job, hasn't he? You know, it hasn't done
We
in
all
the
have,
world.
honey.
Hasn't done in the world of good. He's been a fantastic manager for Arsenal.
Even David Cameron's showing the first grey
I know,
hairs
he
now.
is.
He's only been
I'll
there
tell you,
5 minutes.
I looked at David Cameron the other day and I thought, you either need Botox or laser treatment because you're on your way out. I'd say that Arsene Wenger, he has done a fantastic job, but he went so far. I think over the last 5 years, the club's gone backwards regards to playing staff.
Since the move, you think?
Yeah, I'd say since the move, since they've lost 1 or 2 players, then players have not been replaced. I don't know if they are replaceable, but they've certainly not been replaced. I think that, without doubt, if they want to be a top 3 club, they need 6 players. Six players, no question. Yeah.
Okay.
They've got
And you
very
just
good.
happen to have them.
They've got. No, I wish I did. I mean, they've got a very good footballing team. The one thing I've always had that I don't think Arsene Wenger has got right, for what I know about the game and what he knows, he's a manager. I'm not, but I think my ability of judging players is as good as any. What I don't think he's got right, he's always wanted defenders who can handle the ball. They've always got to be able to play. Personally, I think your defenders have got to be able to defend. Because if they can't defend,
Well, that's
you
where
haven't got
and
a
that's
great
actually, Barry,
goalkeeper,
that's
you've
where
got
he
a problem.
came in with that magnificent back four that he inherited actually from George Graham. I mean, I have to admit, I was going to say I'm a closet Arsenal supporter. I'm not closet.
You're
I've been
not, are
quite
you?
articulate about it. I mean, they're always in my heart and soul. You cut me, I still bleed red.
Well, so does everyone, I
we
hope,
have
unless you've got leukemia.
But I bleed red deeper, and I know we have a young man called Ben on the Skype wall. Hi Ben, how you doing?
I'm not bad, how are you?
You're very welcome, my friend. You're a fellow Arsenal man.
Indeed.
Tell us your thoughts about
Poor old Ben.
Arsenal, about Wenger, about the fact that we're fifth and we all want to be first, and what do you think we should do?
Well, I'm still very pro Wenger. I believe he knows what he's doing. We've been unfortunate that we've had so many fullbacks out. Like our covers and our covers seem to be just dropping. But I'm a bit upset that he's not buying in the January window. Reading the article today was a bit upsetting, but again, it's the Sun, so you never know what's true and what's not.
Ben, do you subscribe to the theory that something's not quite right medically at Arsenal? They carry a lot of injuries normally from late August.
Yeah, I've been debating this with my friends recently because we've got too many injuries and players who get injured and come back seem to be getting injured again. And it's getting extremely frustrating. So I think it's almost getting to the stage where it's too much of a coincidence to have so many injuries. And it just never seems to end. So I'm starting to look at the medical stuff a bit.
And how do you feel as an Arsenal supporter, Ben? Are you, now we're sitting at fifth, are we going to make Champions League? Are you getting frustrated? What would you, if you're not talking to me, if you're talking to Arsene, what would you say to him now?
Well, I definitely think he needs to get support for Van Persie. If Van Persie goes, we're in real trouble. I'm a big fan of Jovino. I think he's very creative, but he needs to work on his finishing. We don't have enough end product. Obviously, we've got our weaknesses at the back. I think when our back four do come back, and we've got Sanya, Vermaelen and Koscielny, I think that's strong. Our left, Santos and Gibbs are not quite there as like a world-class left back, but I just want Wenger to keep on going, really. We just instill confidence back in us. Wilshere will be a big confidence boost for Arsenal, definitely.
I've got to say that I really
what would you
believe,
do now? You're Wenger.
I've
What
got
would
to
you
say,
do?
I really believe he buys too many players who are similar. He plays too many players that are similar. There was a player out there this year for Sal, and I couldn't believe he didn't buy him. I believe that Steve Rowley, who's the chief scout there, really felt the player could be a great player for Arsenal. Personally, I thought he would have been a fantastic player for them, but they just don't seem to buy that type of player. Well, Scott Parker, Scott
Yeah,
Parker is a
there was some Rachel. There was some
player.
news about that. Any idea why that didn't happen?
Every player he buys
I think you're right.
is a footballer. Passer, pass.
Why
pass,
didn't he do
pass,
that, Rachel?
pass.
He sort of seems to pick them physiology by their physique.
No, not necessarily. You've got Nasri. Nasri's not a big player. Arshevin's tiny. He buys players who are very similar type of players.
Too many,
all pass, move,
too many
pass,
continental
move.
players. Should we? Should
Arsenal
Arsenal
there's no physical.
have
There's
more British players in the
no.
team?
There's no physical players. Doesn't
Ben, what
matter
do
where
you
you're
think?
from.
I agree about buying too many similar players. I mean, a few weeks ago, we had Rosicky and Ben Ayoum on at the same time on the pitch. They're literally identical. I think we need to get some more variety. We've got Walcott, he brings pace. We need that strength in the middle. We don't have a strong centre back. Arteta's good, great passer of the ball, but he's not as creative enough in the middle for me. Song, I love. Song's a rock in the defensive midfield.
He's come on really
play.
well, hasn't he? He's come on really well.
Every team should have a Scott Parker.
What they don't seem to have is a blend. They don't have an athlete in midfield who can get forward, score goals.
They used to.
But
when
now
Fabregas
they don't.
was there, and the back
you
four.
can't replace Fabregas. I said that at the time. Wilshere and all them players. You can't replace Fabregas. He's world class. But you need to find an athlete in midfield. You need to find a different type of player than just someone who just pass. You need something different.
You're probably right. 13 seconds. We're going to the end of the programme. 13 seconds. Ben, last word is yours. Do you agree with Barry?
I do agree with Barry, definitely. I hope he doesn't leave it too late again next summer, and he gets in early, picks up some creative strikers, and we go on next season to get Champions League.
Thanks, mate. I look forward to seeing you at the Emirates in the weeks ahead.
Well done, Ben.
Happy New Year to you, belatedly. Enjoy. Speak to you soon. We have to go fairly rapidly. I want to have 20, 30, 40 seconds on Darlington.
It's such a shame, isn't it?
They went bust today for 3 hours, and then the rescue team came in. Give me a very quick, sentimental answer, because we're nearly out of time.
Well, it's too big.
seconds.
They need to sell up and build somewhere else. They need to maybe ground swap.
We wish everybody well, from Darlington to Brighton, from north to south, east and west. You're what it's all about. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope Barry and Rachel have enlightened you.
Sense.
I hope they make sense occasionally, but I hope they've shown you a little bit of the agency world, because this is the heartbeat of the business. Enjoy your football. Look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future. Good night.